Welcome to another War of the Visions video. In this one, we're going to be talking about Valentine Miranda, or Miranda Sweetheart as she's known in global, and we're going to talk about her strengths, her weaknesses, a little bit about her applications in the meta, and we'll do all of that so that you can decide whether or not you're going to be pulling for her come this Wednesday. No AI test this time, as I could not find any Valentine Mirandas on my JP game to actually do an AI test with her. And I know some people might be thinking, well, you collected footage for her, why didn't you do the AI test then? And sometimes I have time to, sometimes I don't. It's really, you know, an extra task that I put into every day, and to collect the footage and use because you basically every day during a banner, you get one chance to use the rental unit that they put up during the banner. And if you don't use them properly, then you don't get good AI footage. And so, you know, I don't have one today, but hopefully I'll have more AI tests in the future. So let's go ahead and talk about Valentine Miranda's damage, because I think this is one of the highlights of her kit, despite one glaring weakness, although it's been addressed in global. So first of all, we'll go through the scouting report here for damage. She does have very high magic, and she has a limit burst, which is very effective because it has a spirit and a light resistance imperil. So when you hit with this limit burst, you're going to enable your magic damage dealers and your light damage dealers to deal more damage. This is important as there is more elemental resistance around these days. It's going to be important for taking on dark teams with Sephiroth, or taking on, you know, King Mont fire teams, whatever it is. Even if they don't have elemental resistance, it basically means you're just seriously going to beat up on people. It's been a while since we've had a nice, you know, elemental imperil like this that we'll see a lot of. So it's good to see. Otherwise, she has very good spirit penetration, and she even has chaining skills. She has multiple attack types, both magic and slash, and she has a magic damage up on her, you know, bread and butter low AP move. The only thing that she's missing for damage is slash pen, and she has 10 innate and 40% on an attack, so there's a chance that she'll get up to 50% no problem. If you have a weapon or trust stones, you can go another 10 or 20 depending on what you're doing here. But the global VC that's coming out is actually going to have some slash pen on it too, for her specifically, so that will address those times where she doesn't get that attack off, or the times where she gets dispelled or whatever it is, and she actually has a, you know, a reasonable amount of slash penetration. So what we're seeing here is a unit that's definitely set up to do some decent damage, and at that nice 70 cost price point, it's going to be really effective in the upcoming limited guild battle, but also all future limited guild battles. And that makes these types of units very effective. If that's content that you like, then it's really easy to use a unit like this. I know that light has lots of 70 costs, but this is the most updated one, so definitely worth looking at, you know, for that aspect. In terms of durability, she's not that durable. She doesn't have terrific HP or anything like that. She does have very interesting resistances, so 30% to strike and then 20% to slash. Like, those are definitely interesting, and she can gain magic resistance from an ability. She can also gain AoE resistance from her re-raise, but it's only the one use. It can be dispelled, or if you have re-raise removal, whatever it is, it's not really going to be enough to help her, especially in guild battle where you have to fight multiple fights. And she has an attack barrier, which is good, but can be broken. And then otherwise, she can access healing on her white mage sub, but that's not what her AI is. She's not a healer. She's an attacker first, and she only has the one cast to re-raise. She can give herself protect and shell, not just from casting them as a white mage, but also she has abilities on her main kit and on the sub kit for the Grimoire Keeper, where she can actually get protect for herself, which is really good. Like, protect and shell are both very powerful effects, and the fact that you can design her to take on either type of damage is very good. So I definitely see her in certain matchups, you know, being able to survive for a little bit based on those things that she has. But if we're talking about surviving a lot of big Bradley hits, for example, it's not going to help that she has 20% slash resistance. It's not going to help that she doesn't have very much access to AoE resistance. In terms of utility, there is a few good things here. So courage removal, barrier break, and some good AP management in the form of some acquired AP up, but then also AP consumption down, which will arrive through multiple forms with her. So I believe through her sword and through an ability, or a passive ability. So AP should not be a massive problem for her, although she does have a low starting AP amount. So really what it depends on is how many buffs she gets off, and if you're adding on or stacking more acquired AP up. Otherwise, she doesn't have a ton of utility. She has bad accuracy. We're talking 153%, and she does have an accuracy buff on her TMR. I really like her TMR. We'll talk about that in a second here. But the other kind of thing that she has is that 100% hit holy, but that's on her sub job, and it's a sub job that you might use because it is a good sub job, but the Grimoire Keeper sub job is also very effective, and so you're not always going to have that. Really, you're not bringing her to take on full evasion teams, but if you're fighting a team with one evader, or just like, maybe pseudo evade units, then she could probably take them on with the White Mage sub. Otherwise, we can talk a little bit about some cons here. So the big one I had was the 10% innate slash resistance penetration, and then also that limited conditional AoE resistance. And both of those things are being addressed by the global VC, which has a global buff that gives both of those stats specifically to Valentine Miranda. So we have to see what the values are on Wednesday to see if it's a big deal. You obviously will want to use that VC with her if you can, but there's going to be times where it doesn't work for the rest of your party, so it's not a given that these problems are solved for her. Otherwise, we can look at her. She has these skills that are very good on the Grimoire Keeper, on the White Mage, but they have cast times. Right, they're solid skills with cast times, and she doesn't have any cast time reduction. So you can access that from various TMRs, from things like Trust Stones, but it's still going to be something where she's behind other casters that have cast time reduction already, and plus all the modern things that we use. And that is definitely a bummer to access that alternate damage type. And then otherwise, she has that bad accuracy. We already talked about that. So nothing major for a 70 cost. When at the end of the day, she brings a lot to the table for her cost and hopefully her price point, because in JP, a lot of these units came for an 18k step up, where basically it's a 9-step, but all the steps are paid, or not paid, sorry, are FFVIIR, whereas there's no free steps. So for example, Bronwell is out in JP right now, also a 70 cost, and has that 18k step up banner with free FFVIIR. We can do a quick comparison, and I've chosen to pick our Halloween Lucia because she's also that reduced cost unit that we can kind of compare stats with. And then Howlett's there, who's not out in global yet, but is a magic slasher and is a 100 cost. So not exactly fair to compare them, but it just gives you an idea of what she doesn't have necessarily. Although again, like really not a crazy difference between them. The main thing that we see here is that Howlett gets a little bit of extra HP. He gets a little bit more magic, and he can already add to that too. But then he has that high accuracy. Like, he doesn't suffer in a lot of areas, and he still has good resistances as well. Again, another strike resistance unit. With Lucia, she has a very specific role. She's anti-physical, and Miranda has the ability to go against both of those attack types depending on how you build her. But otherwise seems very fairly statted, similar to Lucia. Lucia gets a little bit more HP, but Miranda gets a little bit more agility. Otherwise, they're fairly similar. It's about that. It's what you can expect for a 70 cost. I think they did a good job building out Miranda's kit to be kind of appropriate and not broken. Well, Halloween Lucia is not broken because of her stats. She's broken because of her abilities, or was at a time a little bit broken. She's really leveled out now at this point. We can look at a few other things here. So first up is the TMR. It's an accessory with agility, so we already love it. And the ability is 2-use. Check. And the skill is very good. So decreased chance of being targeted by 6, and then increase accuracy by 30. This is really good. We haven't had an accuracy TMR in a long time. The fact that it has 2 uses, and we also get that, pseudo survivability of not being targeted by, people coming in with some big single target attacks. This is a really good anti-evasion skill. I love to see this. And if anyone's able to pick up this TMR, they will definitely be using it in things like manual PvP, but also whenever these, evade rises and dips, you can kind of be prepared for them with this type of TMR. So I definitely enjoy this. She also had a specific weapon you could farm in JP, and this was a katana that gives you a magic stat primarily, so not an attack stat. And for her specifically, it gives you her some human killer for magic attacks, reaction rate, block rate, and then AP consumption, and then some slash pen. So obviously you want to use this with her, which puts her at that 30% innate penetration to start with, and then goes up to 70% with her ability. But we do have things in global as well that we don't even need the new VC necessarily. If you happen to be able to fit in that, is it the Flash of Insight? It's Rob. It's the one, the VC with Rob on it. That has some slash pen as well. There's other ways to get access some slash pen with like iGuy on or whatever else. So there's other ways to augment that if that is a serious barrier to using her for you in your teams. But there are these different ways where she is going to be able to access some slash pen, and it's not going to be quite as bad as maybe I've made it out to be. Oh, and by the way, I would probably just farm a magic version of this, but the 21 crit there isn't terrible either, so you could always farm 2 if you really wanted to. All right, so I don't have the full details of this card yet, but it is a pretty nice card. I think, you know, they've really targeted me here by making it once again a glove card, clearly wanting people to play with Addison and to be able to quickly assemble a team for her. If you're a new player that started for the Addison collab or just happen to start right now, then you already have a really good situation going on where you can build Locke for free and then pull for Miranda and then build your Addison and pull these cards that are going to work with them. Because what we have here is a card that works for both Addison, but also is going to be working for Miranda, and it gives accuracy up, acquired AP up, and then slash attack resistance up. So these things are all really, really good specifically for Miranda. So Miranda has low accuracy, and I said while she has good, you know, AP consumption down, she could use another source of acquired AP up because she has that lowest value of starting AP of the like 3 types that you can start with. And she has a decent slash resist, but it's not spectacular. So this will add to that as well. And the fact we get more magic with the bestowed, we get slash attack res piercing up for both types of Miranda, and then both Raviesses is also fine with more area resistance up as well. It seems like a really solid card for her, clearly designed for her, but also works with Addison. It puts me in a tricky spot because I think I have like 6,000 Visior right now, and I want to build Addison, but I also want to pull for this card. I think what I'm going to end up doing is pulling the 10k for this card once I've saved it up, and I have a lot of like story and stuff that I can clear to go get that. But then I'm not going to be buying shards in the shop. I'll probably be slow building it and just waiting for it to eventually kind of build up through the hard quests as I've done in the past. Okay, we're back on warofthevisionstats.com to see kind of how it's going in JP for Miranda, and she's not seeing a ton of play in the top 50. We can see only 4 teams the other day. This is every time I bring up a stat here, it's just a single day. On defense, 6 teams used her the other day. There was a day where there was 9, you know, near the beginning, 41. At one point here, she was using 44, 47 attack teams. Obviously, she's meant for limited content, and there are going to be situations where she'll be good outside of limited content, but she's not going to be a Halloween Lucia that can be put in no matter what. That's just going to push an element a certain way. She's going to be a very sturdy addition to Light, but not a game-breaking unit. You know, even if we wanted to expand this to like the top 100, we're not seeing crazy increases, just doubled, right? So just really nothing crazy there. But we can go down and look at kind of what teams are. So this is top 50 again, what teams we're seeing here. So obviously Bart's is very popular, free unit, 100 cost for the Final Fantasy V collaboration. And otherwise we're seeing things like Stern and Miranda. We're seeing things like Engelbert is in there, Warrior of Light. Those are going to be really important compositions on defense, to have some sort of tank to protect her, because again, she just doesn't have enough going on to survive. So you definitely want to have a tank with her most of the time, unless you've very carefully tuned for a map. And you know, for example, that if you have a high powered attack team, like we see on the left there, someone was, you know, able to use Jaden and Stern and Miranda, or on the right side, we saw that, you know, Stern, Miranda, and Bart's got 1.3 defenses. So really, for the most part, people are going to be wanting to build her with a tank. And that's going to be it for this video. There's not really too much to say about Miranda. She's definitely a solid unit. Like I said, I think that if we have a discounted banner, then this is just too good a chance to pick her up if you're a light player and you're looking for more support for limited content, because we get that bargain. Otherwise, you're waiting to pick her up randomly, or maybe on a rerun, or maybe, you know, whatever you could possibly get her. And that's hard to say. If you are feeling pretty good about your cost limited options and you're not that big into light, she's a very easy skip. But if you're in this situation where you're a light main, then getting these extra tools is always pretty good. Now, let's say she wasn't discounted and she was full cost, then it would be a lot harder to recommend her, just given that we have, you know, another collaboration coming up with Final Fantasy V and Dialdo and Raph and all these other units coming up. So, and we also might still have summer surprises. So I couldn't recommend her in that case. You can always just get her later. That's what happened with Valentine Eldira. For me, I eventually got her off banner and was able to slow build her and still get a ton of good use out of her. So there's always that option. But if we see discounted Miranda, then I say go for it. If you're a light main, I think that's a good choice. Otherwise, that's going to be it for me. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that it was useful for you. And if it was, you can let me know down in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you all soon in another video.